Hi everyone, and welcome to our live talk this evening. I am joined by a panel of experts, and we're going to talk about developing leaders in sports and exercise science. My name is Cleo Devaney, and I am one of the marketing managers at ATU, and I will be your panel host this evening. Firstly, I'd like to just introduce you to everybody who we'll be talking with throughout this talk. So I am joined by Dr. Ken Van Summeren, who's a lecturer in sports performance and innovation. I'm also joined by Dr. Kevin Craddock, who is a lecturer and program chair for the Masters in Sports and Exercise Nutrition. And finally, we have Ross Corbett, who is the assistant lecturer and acting program chair for the honours degree in sports and exercise science. So it's great to have you all here today, and thank you. They're representatives from across our ATU campuses, one in Donegal, Galway Mayo, and in Sligo as well. So across ATU, we have a huge range of programs. We'll be talking mainly about the master's programs that we offer, and giving you a little bit of an insight about what's different and what's unique about each of them in our colleges. Each of the courses we talk about today are open for applications at the moment, and if you have any questions about what comes up on our talk, please do feel free to drop a question into the Q&A box. We have a team who are watching that Q&A box and will be available to answer any questions you have. So hopefully you can relax and enjoy this now for the next 20 minutes, and we'll find out all about these courses. So I'll start maybe with yourself, Ken, if that's okay.
Hi, Claire. Yes.
Hi, how are you doing? Thank you for joining us this evening. You lecture on the Masters in Sports Performance Practice at ATU Donegal. So we wanted to talk about that first and just give us a little bit of an overview about the programme, how long it's been running, and why you developed the course there.
Sure, yeah, well, pleasure to join you. Thank you. So we're now in our third year of running, and the Masters in Sport Performance Practice really was set up in response to growing demand for sports practitioners with knowledge and skills to make a difference for athletes, players, and make a contribution to coaches. And really, I think that is in part due to the increasing professionalization and globalization of sport, where we see growing demand for sports scientists, coaches, practitioners, and so on. So as the demand increases, so we see the need to provide this level of academic qualification and training for people setting out on a career in this direction. The focus of the program is very much about the application of the science, or the application of theory. And we talk about some fundamental principles. So for example, understanding what it takes to win. So we really analyze each sport, whatever they might be. It might be Gaelic football, it might be Olympic rowing, trying to understand from a physiological, technical, nutritional, psychological perspective, what do these people need to be doing? Mm-hmm. And then we also talk about the art and the craft of professional practice as well. So yes, we need our technical knowledge and understanding, but we're also about developing graduates and practitioners who have the interpersonal skills, the relationship building skills. So all those professional competencies to be able to go and take this theory and make a difference in the field.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I suppose you touched on a point there, like it is increasing professionalism. You know, there's definitely demand out for for this skill set to have those qualified professionals. So who is applying for the course? Like, what kind of background do people need to have, and an area of interest in order to kind of succeed in the course?
Well, over the last 3 years, we've had a whole host of different, I guess, profile. The majority would be people coming from a sports science or a sports science related level 8 undergraduate. But we also offer a RPL route, so recognition of prior experiential learning. So we have one person on our masters currently who comes from psychiatric nursing, someone else with an undergraduate degree and currently working in the IT sector. So really, it's aimed for anyone that wants to start or develop their career in any aspect of sport. So again, it could be coaching. We get PE teachers often coming in as well, so secondary school teachers, and of course, sports scientists. I think it also probably appeals to people looking to develop their management and leadership capabilities within sport as well.
Yeah.
So I'd say to people, if they have a passion, even if they don't have a degree in a related subject, come and talk to us. Because from an academic interest that you ask about, really, I would say the most important thing is just to have a curiosity for sport performance. And if you have that curiosity and that passion, it might be through your coaching, it might be through your own sporting career, then it is all very doable.
Oh, that's great to hear. You know, again, it's open, and those great examples of the variety of students you have on the course, and obviously the program webpage as well lists all the modules that you teach throughout the master's program. And would you, again, I think it is part-time, isn't it? So you have people who are working full-time, it's available full-time as well, is it?
Well, it's a full-time program. We do offer a part-time program, but up until now we've been running it full-time.
Okay.
But because of the blended delivery, which means it's largely online, it's actually been created with the professional learner in mind.
Okay.
So online classes every week are recorded and put on our online learning platform, which means if people are in work full-time or part-time and they can't make the lectures, they can make them up in their own time.
Okay.
And then on top of that, we do have a couple of blocks each semester, so two-day blocks where we get everyone together and we really focus on the practical skills. So it could be in the high performance strength and conditioning suite, it could be in the high performance laboratory, or it might just be working on some of those professional skills and competencies of building rapport, working in a team, communication, and so on. But that very flexible and blended delivery does make it very, very accessible to anyone.
Okay, very good, very good. Because I know I was wondering about how proximity to the campus, but obviously that flexible model of delivery will allow people to be based outside of the area, but come
Absolutely.
for those practicals. And just if you wanted to just finish off with yourself in the last, just even to highlight maybe one module or one area of interest that kind of makes your program unique, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, of course, I would say we've got a cracking course team, which is with huge amounts of experience working in high-performance sports across a whole range of disciplines. We supplement that with guest speakers, and we get guest speakers from both absolute world leaders in their fields, but also just people starting out in their careers as well, which I think is a really valuable perspective for our learners. Another really, I think a unique aspect is the professional practice module. So that really, although in every other module, so we might take a discipline-specific focus, for example, physiology or nutrition, but we have this multidisciplinary theme running through them all, which is all about, well, how do we work in the bigger picture, in the bigger context of sport performance? But the professional practice module is the one where we really put all of that together, we highlight this art and the craft of being a practitioner, and we really allow the learner to focus in on, well, what route do they want to take? Would they like to become accredited as a sports nutritionist, a physiologist, a sports scientist, a coach, a performance analyst? And then we work with you to actually to be able to understand the accreditation process and actually prepare A, your professional development, but B, your future application for that accreditation.
Great. That's fantastic. Look, I know that was a whistle-stop tour, but just on the Masters in Sports Performance Practice from ATU Donegal. So thank you very much, Ken. There's lots more details on the website, and I know there's a video there as well with lots of different lecturers speaking about, the opportunities there. So thank you. I will move on. Kevin, you're up next. We're going to talk about how you doing the Masters in Sports and Exercise Nutrition. So again, it's very much kind of a sport master's program, but we'll maybe just look at what's different about it and what's unique and the offering and stuff like that. So if you talk to me about the disciplines of sports and exercise nutrition, how it's evolved recently and the growth probably in demand for those professionals.
Thanks, Cleo, and thanks for the opportunity to chat about the course. So yeah, it's interesting to see how much the whole space of sports nutrition has evolved over the past 20 years or so. So when I started with the IRFU in my role as a strength and conditioning coach way back in the early 2000s, so in 2001, there were no sports nutritionists working in a full-time capacity with the IRFU. So part of my role as a strength and conditioning coach was to, because I had a master's in sports nutrition, was to do some part-time work as part of my role with the national team and with the provincial teams. So to put it in perspective how that's evolved, so the IRFU has since employed a series of sports nutritionists, so headed up by Ruth Wood Martin, who's done a fantastic job at building a team and building the profile. So now in 2023, there's 12 people working in a full-time capacity. So 20 years ago, there was nobody working in a full-time capacity. So
that's fascinating. Yeah, definitely.
Full-time roles now being created due to the professionalism and the growth of that space, I suppose.
Wow. And so you would have people coming into you, I suppose, just around the entry route. So like that's a clear indication of kind of how the whole place, it has evolved and the importance that is now placed on it in professional sport, but also in all sports. It's not just the professional era, isn't it? Like it would be kind of across the board in sports nutrition is seen as a key part.
Absolutely, and we would see that quite frequently, Cleo, that there's a huge need for further expertise and quality information across all the levels. So typically the elite level sports tends to be quite well serviced via sports nutrition, strength and conditioning, psychology, but down the levels, the information doesn't always filter through as well as it should. So we see it quite frequently that there's a glaring need for expertise and information across the levels. But to answer your question in terms of the entry points, so we would have so our entry requirements, we would have a variety of applicants, typically coming from sports science. We have nutritionists, dietitians, some people looking to bridge over from other areas of expertise. So we have our direct entry route, as Ken mentioned, and also the RPL route for people who have expertise in another area. And just to highlight on a keyword that Ken mentioned, that the passion for learning and passion for further learning is really important. So we don't rule out candidates because they don't have a degree. So our direct entry route is a degree in nutrition or a science-related area, an honours 2.2 level degree or higher. But there is an opportunity for people who have a degree in another area to transfer over through the RPL route, who have experience and a passion and have shown some learnings in that area of sports nutrition or nutrition to bridge over.
Yeah, so they may be working in a professional sports area, they may be working in that arena somewhere, but they might not have the science background. That's still something that they can come in and learn. It's not going to prevent them from taking the master's course.
Absolutely. We have had a couple of RPL applicants who've successfully navigated through their first year. And as Ken mentioned, we find here in Sligo that their passion and interest drives them through very well, so they can bridge the gap between the areas they have maybe missed with nutrition because they're hungry to learn and they're interested in the material. So we have several successful students who've come through the RPL process.
Great. No, that's good to hear. And I know if there's anybody interested in that, there's more information on atu.ie/RPL. We'll actually get them some information about how to apply through that method. Just one of the things to highlight again, you're from the ATU Sligo, and in ATU Galway Mayo, there's a applied sports and exercise nutrition masters, and there's sports and exercise nutrition masters in Sligo. So just if there is a couple of differences or any elements that you can highlight between the two courses.
So some similarities and some differences, Cleo. So very similar subject matter, obviously sports and exercise nutrition. So one of the key differences, I suppose, is the time frame. So the Masters in Sligo is run over a 2-year period. It's part-time and it's exclusively online. So the Galway-based Masters is run over 18 months, and it offers a more blended learning approach. So there's more face-to-face on-site. And I suppose the key difference with the Galway-based Masters is there's a practical component. So there's work experience built into the program. So I can highlight.
And I suppose that's people can go to the website to see more information about what that actually entails in terms of how they actually manage their time, and different modes of learning suit different people, and that's probably the good thing to notice about those two offerings.
Exactly. So the different offerings are may suit different learners. So the attraction for Sligo is it's online, it's part-time, and it offers flexibility. So you also have that flexibility with Galway, but you also have an inbuilt work experience. So you've also excellent people working in Galway with Dr. Robert Mooney and Nora Ní Flanagan. I've both worked with both previously, and they're lucky to have those guys there as well. So a very good team there as well, no more than the team that we have in Sligo as well.
Yeah, good stuff. Just one last question for you, Kevin, if that's okay. Just the research element of the course. Like some people, would have questions about that. Maybe when they're undertaking a master's, how do they prepare for that? Do they have to have practical experience? And how much guidance and support is there in that area?
So yeah, great question, Cleo. So I suppose the way we look at the research element for the Masters, it's probably the most exciting part and the biggest opportunity for the student to put their stamp on their Masters and to explore an area that they're really passionate about or that they want to really explore. So we really actively encourage the students to choose and play a strong role in choosing their Master's topic for research rather than us directing them towards it. So in terms of support and guidance, the master's thesis is run over two terms, so it's run over a full calendar year. So there's preparatory work in terms of research methods and statistics for sport and exercise. There's also preparation guidance in terms of preparing ethics applications if that's required. And then in Sligo, we run the actual research project from January through to September effectively. So the students typically would meet their supervisors on a weekly basis or maybe fortnightly, depending on the subject or the criteria, but typically on a weekly basis. So quite a lot of support from the different lecturers depending on their subject area. So we align the subject area or the topic with the lecturer that has experience or expertise in that area as well.
Excellent. No, look, that's great. And thank you very much for all that information. Hopefully it's been useful to people who are thinking about their options at the moment. So I will move on now, if that's okay, to Ross.
Thanks,
Ross,
Cleo.
Sorry for leaving you to the last there now, but
no problem, Cleo. Nice to be talking to you all.
Yes, you too. And look, we are going to talk about, again, we've mentioned there's a host of courses available at master's level from ATU Galway Mayo, and you're going to speak. We'll maybe talk specifically initially about the sports and clinical biomechanics masters that's there. If you could talk to me a little bit just about that discipline area of clinical biomechanics, and what would students expect from that learning?
Yeah, so I guess biomechanics looks predominantly at the study of human movement, and I guess where we've pitched that master's course is kind of as being two-pronged in terms of looking at a risk of injury and addressing that issue in sport and in general populations, and also then in terms of improving performance. So you could look at the field of biomechanics as falling, let's say, maybe between physio and strength conditioning or performance. So we try and prepare students to be able to be a nice go between those two disciplines.
Excellent. And I suppose, like, what area would typically students have come from in order to actually, specialize in that area?
So we would have some people who come from a physio background, a lot of people who come from a sport and exercise science background. We also have an RPL route, just like Kevin and Ken have talked about as well. So we'd have that same RPL application pathway as well. We have one student in this year's cohort has come from a gymnastics coaching background, where biomechanics is obviously hugely important in terms of that sport and being able to break it down and address issues. We've one other student on the current cohort that comes from a podiatry background. So she was particularly interested in looking at particularly around the foot area and how that affects performance and injury risk from her background.
Excellent. Yeah, a whole variety there of disciplines and, I suppose, areas of interest that people can specialise in. Yeah. And then typically somebody will undertake the Masters. And is it a full-time or part-time, or what level of time commitment do they need to give to the course?
Yeah, so it's a full-time course, so full-time over 18 months. So you have 3 semesters involved there, similar to as Kevin was talking about with their nutrition masters. Again, we run lectures live weekly, but they're also recorded and placed on Moodle. So again, if people miss them, they can watch them back. And we also have 3 to 4 practical days where students come to Galway into our lab and do their practical content there. So there's 3 to 4, 1 to 2 day workshop kind of style blocks of content across each semester.
And is there also the research element there in the master's side of things as well, with the sports and
yeah, so in the biomechanics masters there's 60 credits of research, so 60 credits of research, so it also kind of qualifies as a research master's.
Okay, very good. And do you find that people, again, is it kind of they base it on their background or their experience, in terms of what they focus on for their master's research?
Yeah, absolutely. So we leave it open to the students. We make some suggestions based on the lecturer/supervisor's areas of interest. So we have some people that would be putting forward ideas from, at the moment, swimming, golf, gymnastics, strength conditioning background. But again, those ideas can work around the student as well. So the student can bring forward their own idea, or they can align themselves with an idea that's proposed by their supervisor or a member of staff.
Okay, excellent. And I know I wanted to just briefly touch on, there's another master's that's offered in Galway City, the Masters in Strength and Conditioning. And just even if you could highlight, maybe why somebody would apply for that course over, or what typically kind of type of applicants do you get for the Masters in Strength and Conditioning?
Yeah, so typically on the Strength and Conditioning Masters, most of our applicants would come from a sport and exercise but science background. Again, we have that RPL route. So in the past, we've had people that have come from, let's say, teaching backgrounds or that have passions in sport as well. So that's where a lot of our students would come from. Again, I guess a lot of people would apply either in the hope of opening their own business in strength conditioning or going on to work in, I guess, ideally for a lot of people in elite sport, but also at different ranges of sport. So we've some of our graduates from that course are working with Connacht Rugby, Galway United and League of Ireland, different levels of strength and conditioning within the GA as well.
Yeah, very good. Now, I know on your own website, the Masters in Strength and Conditioning, there's a webinar there. It's about a 13-minute webinar, and you have two students talking about their experience, somebody who's coaching in Galway United and somebody from Connacht Rugby as well. So it's worth, if somebody's interested in the course, just to have a look at that video. And again, they talk about their experience, why they studied it, and some advice for anybody who's thinking about taking on the Masters, what they need to consider. So there's great information there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, I'm sorry now that we have to draw things to a close at this stage. I know we've touched on a lot of areas. There's sports performance masters, there's strength and conditioning, sports and exercise nutrition, sport and clinical biomechanics. If you go to atu.ie/flexible, and there is a category there called sport and exercise science, all the courses that are offered are listed there. A lot of the courses we talked about today as well, they're available as masters, but there's also exit routes at postgraduate diploma level. We find that some students come in and they do the postgraduate diploma, and then they take on the masters when they get hooked on it, I suppose, and want to progress into the masters award. So there's lots of flexibility, lots of options there, and again, we could talk for a lot longer on each of these, but hopefully it's given people a flavour for what's available from ATU. And I'll just finish by saying thank you very much to each of our panellists, to Ken from ATU Donegal, to Kevin from ATU Sligo, and to Ross from ATU Galway Mayo. It's been great to hear all your expertise in the area and kind of the differences and the uniqueness that each of you bring to the offering. So thank you very much for your time. And that's it for us now. And if you have, as I say, if you have any questions, please do pop a question into the Q&A section. And this video has been recorded and will be posted on the ATU YouTube channel as well. So it's available to watch back there. Thank you, everybody.